The homework might ask you to factor down to linear factors, and I just want to show you what that means. You won't do this very often in your mathematical career, but it's good to see it at least once. So when I tell you to factor down to linear factors, I am telling you to factor it down more than what you would normally do. So for instance, x squared minus 7 doesn't typically factor down more. We wouldn't typically go further, but we are going to go further. We're just going to go ahead. 7's not a perfect square, but we could factor this down to x minus square root of 7 and then x plus square root of 7. So we're treating it like a difference of perfect squares where you have the minus and the plus, but you're just putting a square root of 7 in your answer. So same thing with this one, except this time it's a plus 25. So remember, when we have like a squared minus b squared, we know how it factors. So this is essentially like doing x squared minus a negative 25. That tells us it's going to be an imaginary number because we're taking the square root of a negative number. So when you see a plus sign, you just know that you're going to have imaginary numbers. So it'll be like x plus 5i and x minus 5i. So they're both imaginary. And then one other type you might see is when there's 3 terms. We actually in a previous problem solved this. Let me find it. It's this one right here. So our solution, I'm going to put down the solution. Oops. So the solution was negative 7 plus or minus square root of 37, all of that over 2. So if you see one like this where it's 3 terms, the way you'd factor this is you do x minus one of those factors and then x minus the other factor, because you're always subtracting the 0. So we have x minus negative 7 plus square root of 37 over 2, and then x minus a negative 7, so both of those are negative 7 minus square root of 37, all that over 2. And there would be your solution. So one thing to watch out for, let me show one really quick. I think it's this example. Yep. If I told you to factor down x squared minus 2x plus 4 down to linear factors, your solution for that is right here. I'm going to highlight it in green. So there's your solution. You would write that as x minus, and notice I put it in parentheses. It's because it's not in a fraction. So we've got 1 plus I squared of 3. And then x minus a 1 minus I squared of 3. So your solution, if you distribute, would be x minus 1 minus I squared of 3 and x minus 1 plus I squared of 3. Notice the sign in front of the first term was the same on these ones that use the quadratic formula, but the sign changes for the second term. Okay, so just a heads up. That's how you do factoring down to linear factors. Do not do it that far unless I say to factor down to linear factors.